So with the potential for a brand new Toejam Earl game coming out for PC, I thought I'd take you right back to the start of the Leftover Culture review and talk about a game that I've wanted to share for a really long time, but honestly, I've been a bit scared that I just couldn't do it justice. When I started the show, there was a very definitive list of games I wanted to hit. A mix of Sega games that I thought really defined the show itself and the vibe I wanted to create. Shinobi, Ranger X, Earthworm Jim, and Streets of Rage. Obviously, I'm not proud of my early reviews. Maybe I tried a little bit too hard to be funny, but I feel like between the lame jokes, I still really tried to give my own thoughts on these games. But that brings me back to Toejam Earl. It's one game that I've wanted to review for a really long time, but I've always been a bit hesitant to. I'm just not quite sure what I can bring to such a unique game. And I said it when I reviewed the original Earthworm Jim game too, but I don't like it when a game is funnier and outshines me on my own show. What can I say? I'm a little bit petty, but look, here we are with Toejam Earl, a really unique game that just has so much 90s charm, and you're either going to love it or it's a game you're going to hate. I played this a lot as a younger bruiser with my brother, and we never got that far. Picking it up all these years later, we totally nailed it on our first run. These randomized stages and power-ups will either frustrate you enough to quit or keep the challenge up and keep you engaged. Finding yourself falling down a level or two and being separated from your buddy can be tough to come back from, but you never know what the next mystery present might be. And look, I'll level with you here. I've never played a game with such awesome enemies. These guys literally put a smile on my face. And that's one thing that I really liked about this game in particular. The humour stays fun, but it never detracts from the gameplay and your overall mission. It's not a distraction. And a lot of people will know the second game, Panic on Funkotron, as the sequel that totally didn't do the original game any justice. And don't get me wrong, I had a blast playing it. There's some really fun elements to the gameplay here and some really unique twists, but if this was how the world was introduced to Toejam Earl, I couldn't see it kicking off. If you were disappointed in the past picking up the second Toejam Earl game, seriously, go back and check it out. You might be surprised at how good it is, especially if you're not expecting it to be like the first game. It was made by the same team who, yeah, they kind of regret making all the confusing changes, but they did have their hands tied since it was Sega paying for it. But the fact the same people were behind this sequel means that even though the gameplay has changed really significantly, the characters are still true to themselves, and there's still plenty of that funk that made the original game so satisfying. And I can't help but feel like the word funk has taken on a slightly different meaning in the last 10 years. But this game is pretty much where I'm going to have to end my Toejam Earl overview because I never owned an Xbox, so I never had a chance to play that third game in the series. And it's easy to kick myself now for getting a PlayStation 2 instead of an Xbox, which is where a lot of awesome sequels for the Sega games ended up, like Panzer Dragoon Auto, Jet Set Radio Future, Crazy Taxi as well, I believe, and obviously Toejam Earl 3. But the relationship between Microsoft and Sega doesn't seem all that weird looking back at it. I mean, the Dreamcast did run Windows after all, and apparently there were even discussions around making the Xbox compatible with Dreamcast games. Probably not surprising then to discover that games like Toejam Earl 3 were originally being developed on the Dreamcast before its demise. And while the project did go through plenty of changes, a working demonstration of this early Toejam Earl 3 for Dreamcast does exist on the internet for you to download and play. I can't help but feel that Toejam Earl isn't one of those games that really gained anything from being in 3D, except a more complex development cycle. For a lot of people, that's why this fourth game is so exciting. No publishers, no intervening third parties. Just an original take on the first game. And the game looks like it's off to a great start, with a really good team, and it's something I'm genuinely excited to get my hands on once it's finished. So look, this is less of a full-fledged leftover culture review and more of me just doing a bit of a show and tell. Because seriously, the Toejam and Earl games are something that you really need to experience for yourself. Hopefully with a buddy. So the Kickstarter for the 4th game finishes on the 28th of March. And I just saw this as a great opportunity to bust out, honestly, one of my favourite series for the Mega Drive. So hopefully I'll be around in a few years still reviewing games and I'll get a chance to check out all 4 of them. But until then, check you next time for more leftover culture. Cheers guys.
The Leftover Culture Review.